Peyote. Yo, what's going on? It's someone that's someone, and welcome back to today's report. Today's report is coming from Jamie at DMT Nexus. The substances used, peyote and cannabis, at a dose of a few grams, the route of administration, orally and smoked. For his prior experience, he's had experience with other cacti, mushrooms, Syrian rue, and MDMA. Alright, so here we are with another report on peyote. We've had a handful of mescaline reports so far, but nowhere near the amount there should be, I feel like, especially with this specific cactus. If you don't know, psychedelic cactuses often contain the phenethylamine, mescaline, as the active alkaloid, a somewhat common psychedelic substance that can last 12 hours plus. And we got quite the experience detailing this, and we'll break this down more after the report. But I'm sure you'll enjoy this one, so without further ado, let's dive right into this. Well, after over a decade of reading about this stuff, hearing stories from others, and more recently, being lucky enough to sit down in front of a Huichol shaman and his son as they played traditional music, I finally made the effort to ingest this medicine. And it surprised me. Peyote is some powerful stuff. I managed to have 14 grams of dry cacti in my possession. Peyote is 100% legal where I live, which sounds like not much, but this cactus is in my eyes a rare gift, and to have any amount of it in your life is a blessing. It's also much more potent than any trichocereus cacti I have encountered thus far, and so much less is needed. I sat down last Saturday night and figured I would just try a small amount. I have worked a few times with Trichocereus peruvianus over the summer, which was in part a response to a recent series of life-changing experiences that were had with Shogun's favorite little pathogen that has made so many waves in the dance scene. I figured some time with phenethylamines was in the cards. Aside from that, there has been much work done with the fungus both alone and in combination with rue. In one powerful night, combining with chuma and fungi. That is, however, for another time. I'm here to talk about wirikuta, or peyote. I ingested only a few grams of the dry buttons, meant to be done as a test dose because I had no idea really how potent peyote can be. From talks with others, I gathered that different people seem to eat every and any dose level of the stuff. I quickly realized, however, that what I imagined to be more of a low-level microdose was building up to something far greater than that. Warm empathic rushes were flowing through my body, not unlike that of MDMA, accompanied by transient nausea and eventual intensification of the visual field, especially in the vibrancy of color scene. Music became wider, and electronic music sounded incredible. Again, a signature in my experience of empathic phenethylamines. At some point, maybe 3 hours after ingestion, and after the nausea had subsided, I smoked a very small puff of cannabis, shut off the lights, and got into bed. I was wearing some of my most cherished faux fur festival gear that I feel extremely comfortable in and always makes me smile, bringing back some of the most beautiful memories I have. Everything was perfect. Faint fractals were beginning to bloom all on surfaces with eyes open, and color was now saturated with neon brilliance, icing on the cake. My heart was radiating, and I felt generally at peace with my life, who I am, and where I'm going. Peyote was like a vacation from all the delusional crap that we hold on to in this life, only to ironically make us all the more sick for doing so. It is a profound letting go. And then things got kinda weird for a moment. The music that was up until this point simply enhanced, and was wider sounding, then started to loop backwards. But it never lost any rhythm or tempo. The rhythm was maintained, but it played forward and backwards. This won't make sense when reading, I know. It was a very strange synesthetic effect, as I could also feel the loop of the music, and at the same moment I said to myself, well, this is weird. And instantly, I could see the pattern of the looping as a strange fractal implosion, like as if it had pierced linear reality by the act of breaking the regular flow of temporal space-time parameters. In the next moment, the sky appeared above me behind closed eyes. This was rather vivid. In the sky above me was a massive eagle, soaring above me, with quite an impressive wingspan. It was breathtaking. There was a moment where everything sort of slowed down, and I just lay there looking up at this beautiful creature. Some kind of fractal pattern then descended down from the eagle towards me. This was like the opening to my visions. The eagle there to welcome me into the world of Wirikuta. I knew this, but again, it won't make sense to try and explain how or why that sort of communication happens. Next, the vision shifted, and I spent maybe 30 to 60 minutes laying flat out in bed, eyes closed, deep in peyote dreaming, speaking with people and processing events, etc., that I know were rather personal, but I can't for the life of me remember much of it anymore. All I know is that it was a lot of personal junk being processed, and that I was having profound visions. This is one thing that surprised me. People say sometimes that cacti is not really psychedelic, or that it's not visionary. Peyote to me is different from the Peruvianus I have worked with. It may be more visionary. I don't really feel qualified to say. I know that I have had visions with all the cacti I've eaten at this point, but not like I did with peyote. Peyote for me is on par with ayahuasca and fungi. It is a powerful visionary sacrament not to be underestimated. It can really take you into a whole other world that I don't feel that the West is equipped to understand. It is magic. The next vision I can remember, I am standing on what seems to be a Mayan pyramid, or Aztec, or Toltec. I would not know the difference. I can see space above, stars, galaxies, etc. The way the sky looks when you get far out of the cities and into the mountains on a clear night. There is this Indian guy there with me. Again, maybe Mayan or Toltec. From the sky down to the pyramids descends this river of rainbow light, and inside of the rainbow light, flowing in the river, is overlaying patterns and fractal glyphs, morphing and shifting. He sort of points to the thing and puts his hands into it, and tells me that he can open stargates with this stuff, whatever this stuff is. Again, this was not spoken to me, it was simply understood. He then actually opens some kind of cosmic doorway inside of the river of rainbow fractal light, and moves towards it, looks back at me as if to invite me to come with him. But I can't. You have not eaten enough peyote today to go where I'm going. The visions continue for hours. Again, much content I cannot recall. I get up every hour or so to smoke a puff of cannabis, and get some juice or water. At times, I sit up with a candle, petting my cat for prolonged periods, feeling a sense of absolute completeness, love, and empathy. I feel good about my life. I feel okay with past relationships. I think about my friends and how amazing these people are in my life. I send some of them messages to tell them how awesome they are and how much I love them. At one point, I get up and dance around the room to down-tempo bass music. Everything is glowing and I love it. Hours go by and this stuff is still going. The globe on my shelf is alive and winking and smiling at me. Tantric goddesses bathing in faint mandalic light are swimming through the air above me, again smiling back at me. Next vision, laying back down in bed, is of a raver. I am presented with this typical image of the candy kit raver. Colored plastic beads halfway to the elbow, rainbow hair, beaming on MDMA, dancing in sacred spirals of light to the ecstasy of life. Wirikuta is present, a force, like the presence of tide in the ocean. Where is it? From where does it arise? It is a movement, intelligent but transient, always present, yet unidentifiable. The vision then becomes like an interactive instruction on the evolutionary development of the human being, a blueprint for the post-industrial human. Okay, I like to go to raves. I like to dance with my friends. This stuff is already in my head, and the visions might play off of that smile. I see visions about how MDMA came into our world from some other place. It was sent here, a divine incarnation to bless humanity with the most potent activation of the heart chakra we have current access to. Wirikuta shows me the genesis of the dancing human, fused with the neo-shamanic heartbeat of syncopated electronic music and the somatic heart and body activation of MDMA. This then sets up the bridge for the introduction of the higher phenethylamine-based medicines, which retain much of the heart activation but carry that energy further up into the other centers as well. In the visions, I witnessed the evolution of the candy kit raver, who then progresses from MDMA and fuses with the spirit of Wirikuta, maturing like a butterfly and blooming into fuller spiritual realization. Suddenly, they are adorned, not with plastic neon beads and baby soothers, etc., but adorned with beautiful shimmering stones and crystals, turquoise beads, quartz, feathers. They are smiling and beaming with light, dancing in circles and chanting. Beautiful sacred music engulfed the dance floor as a whole culture reaches its climax, ready to accept a new way of living on planet Earth. A voice began to address me, this time actually heard in the audible range. I said, "Are you Peyote?" To which the voice simply responded, "Yes." Cool vision, huh? Smile. Okay, so technically, here was the third report of peyote, but it's been a couple years now at this point since we last brought it up. This cactus is one of the oldest psychedelics out there though, and has been thought to have been used for over 5,000 years at this point, namely among the Native Americans, where it's a big part of the culture. Ceremonies are a common thing, especially considering the context Jamie brought up here in this report. The Huichol indigenous people have a known history with peyote, and often their practices are backed up by laws that were set up in the 1900s. Outside of this kind of practice though, like recreational usage, it would be prohibited. Also, the usage of alkaloids extracted from the cactus would also be prohibited, as a chemical extraction process isn't a part of a traditional cactus experience, which we've covered a couple times actually, and it can end up being a very different experience. Part of that reason could be other varying alkaloids that are found in cactus, such as hordenine, tyramine, or pelletine for example. It's speculated that some of these other alkaloids could be playing a role in the experience, and may be psychoactive on their own, as there's over 60 of them to consider. But besides the alkaloid content, I feel like the preparation and consumption methods also do paint way for the tone of the experience. Considering the consumption method alone, one is much more chemical and one is much more closer to nature. In this case, where you literally chewed the buds that grow off the peyote. You could also make a tea out of it, which is the method I tried with San Pedro. Also the thing with peyote, mescaline, and psychedelic cactuses overall, the setting typically tends to play a huge role in the experience and can dictate how strong a trip can be. The first ever peyote trip we covered was from Lalo, where he took it in a ritualistic setting, around a campfire with a trained shaman, where he proceeded to have visions that correlated heavy with what was going on around him. And while here in this report, we don't see that kind of setting, you can tell his past experience with Cactus played a strong role in influencing his trip. And to explain some of the things he was talking about, he mentioned the Wirikuta a lot in this, which this is a reference to the desert in Mexico, where Huichols are natives there. They're protected by UNESCO when it comes to their peyote usage, as it is a religious practice to them. And if you don't know, these ceremonies are often held as a form of spiritual growth or healing essentially. Whether that be to find oneself or to help one find peace after a recent trauma, this cactus has a lot of spiritual and personal potential in various areas. Of course though, on the other side of things, especially when you get to the synthetic version of mescaline, you can see a much more recreational side. It being a phenethylamine, the trips don't tend to be too harsh for the most part. Not always the case, but this has been my experience. Like I said, setting can play a huge role, and I recommend you go check out some of our reports on mescaline alone to get a good comparison. In the report, 18-hour trip from one dose by Johnny, we can see he got much more traditional psychedelic effects and not so much heavily themed around the culture and tradition of it. Him and his friends walked around the mall, having fun. And back at the crib, they were getting strong visuals from the things around them, as well as closed-eye visuals. Again, the setting can play a huge role, which this can be a difference between the mescaline and cactus. But we do see here in this report that some of those qualities were present. But it's a powerful experience with many aspects and a lot of potential for how it can play out. This trip showed well the spiritual side of it, as well as the culture. and speaks well for what a cactus enjoyer might experience. So we're going to end it there for today. If you enjoyed this report on peyote and want to see more of this, other cactuses, or whatever, let me know down below and we can do that. Make sure to catch the next vote, follow the socials, and check out more in the description. It's been Someone That's No One, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.